What happens when the CEO of a successful auto repair chain disguises himself as a customer, only to witness his own employee insult a woman for not being from around here? Franklin Zavik had grease on his hands before he ever had a suit. He started with one lift in a garage behind a rented duplex, fixing up clunkers for neighbors who couldn't afford dealership rates. 20 years later, his auto repair chain had grown to 20 locations across the Midwest. But lately, something was off. Customer service scores had dipped at 3 shops. The complaints weren't about prices or wait times, they were about attitude. Cold fronts at the counter, condescending explanations. One woman had written, "Felt like I wasn't welcome because had out-of-state plates." Franklin had tried to handle it the usual way: calls with the district manager, customer surveys, even sending in mystery shoppers. Still, something didn't sit right. He wanted to see it for himself. He chose the shop in Elkhorn, Indiana. It was store number 11. Busy location, good volume, but the tone in recent reviews, off. He picked a Monday and went in undercover. He wore a weathered flannel, old jeans, and a Chicago Cubs cap pulled low. He let his beard grow out for 2 weeks and added a slight limp to his walk. No one at this shop had ever met him. He'd hired most of them through the district manager. He walked in at 9 a.m., pretending to be a guy with a bad alternator and an Illinois plate. The waiting room was half full, coffee pot humming, static from a dusty TV. He approached the front counter where a tall man in his 40s was leaning against the desk, arms crossed. "Morning," Franklin said. "Think I need a new alternator. Car won't start without a jump." The man didn't look up from his phone. "What kind of car?" 2006 Camry. "State inspection up to date?" "Yeah, I think so." The guy finally looked up. "You think so?" he said. "You from Illinois or something? Out-of-staters always bring in junk and expect us to clean it up." Franklin blinked. Another tech nearby chuckled. "Bet it's a salvage title." Franklin forced a light laugh like he didn't mind. "Yes, I'm from Illinois, just moved here last week." The guy his name tag read Rick shook his head. "Figures, look, we're booked out till tomorrow. You can drop it, but I'm not promising nothin'. Car this old, it ain't worth the labor." That wasn't how they trained people to talk to customers. Franklin stepped aside, sat on a cracked vinyl chair, and watched. Over the next hour, he heard Rick raise his voice twice, once to a teenage boy asking about tire rotation, and once to a woman trying to understand her estimate. But then it got worse. At 10:15, a young woman walked in. Long brown hair, green jacket, and a soft voice. "Hi, my check engine light's been flashing since yesterday. I'm just passing through town, but—" "You're not from here," Rick said, cutting her off. "No, I'm driving from Michigan to Kentucky." "Then you're probably not gonna like our prices," he said. "This ain't one of those chain lube joints. We do real work. If you're looking for cheap, go back to Michigan." The woman blinked, clearly caught off guard. "I just need to make sure it's safe to drive." "You'll be fine," Rick said. "Light's probably just an O2 sensor. Don't worry about it." She hesitated. "Really? You didn't even check?" "You want me to run a full scan? That's $75, just for me to plug in a reader." Franklin stood up. "Hey," he said, stepping forward. "Can I ask, why are you talking to her like that?" Rick turned. "What?" "She just asked a question. You don't have to be." "Look, buddy, you waiting on your own junk car or trying to manage mine?" Franklin raised his hands. "Relax," just seemed a little harsh. Rick rolled his eyes and turned back to the woman. "You want the scan or not?" She looked at Franklin, then back at Rick. "No, I'll go somewhere else." She turned and walked out. Franklin followed. In the parking lot, she was fumbling for her keys with shaking hands. "Hey," Franklin said gently, "you okay?" She nodded too quickly. Yeah, I just have been driving for hours and didn't expect that. I'm sorry, Franklin said. He shouldn't have spoken to you like that. She looked at him. You don't work here, do you? He smiled. Not exactly. Inside, he sat back down. Waited. Watched Rick berate a younger tech for taking too long on a break job. Watched another guy, Mateo, quietly step in to help the rookie without saying a word. Franklin scribbled names in a little notepad in his coat pocket. Rick, aggressive, dismissive. Mateo, helpful, patient. Franklin narrowed his eyes. This shop wasn't broken, it was being led the wrong way. He wasn't done watching, not yet. Franklin stayed planted in that cracked chair another 3 hours. He kept his head down, only speaking when spoken to. He wanted to see who was really working and who was just taking up space. By 11, it was clear which of the techs actually carried the load. There was an older guy, Bobby, mid-50s, with a hitch in his step and thick hands that moved like they'd been turning wrenches since he was a teenager. Every time another tech stalled out or needed a second pair of eyes, Bobby was there. No complaining, no wasted motion. He didn't ask for credit. He just got back under the lift. Mateo, the younger tech Franklin had noticed earlier, worked the tire bay. He was fast, really fast, but never rushed. He checked torque twice, wiped down every rim, and even caught a nail in a sidewall another guy had missed. He didn't talk much unless someone spoke to him first, but when he did, there was no attitude, just quiet focus. Rick, on the other hand, spent more time in the office than anywhere else. He leaned on the counter, cracked jokes that only the other loudmouth tech laughed at, and barked orders without lifting a finger. Franklin watched Rick tear into a kid named AJ for taking too long on an oil change, but when Franklin peeked into the bay, AJ was doing it by the book, checking fluids, wiping down the dipstick, logging the service. The kid couldn't have been older than 20. At noon, Rick locked the customer door and flipped the sign to "closed for lunch," even though 2 people were still waiting. "Lunch is lunch," he muttered, ignoring the man at the door who tapped the glass. Franklin walked outside and sat on the curb near the smokers. Bobby lit a cigarette, leaned against the wall, and pulled out a pill bottle. He popped 2 and dry swallowed them. "You all right?" Franklin asked. Bobby grunted. "Doctor says my back's got more metal than bone at this point, but I gotta keep going, can't afford to slow down." Franklin nodded. "You ever get a break during the day?" Bobby laughed once, no humor in it. "Break, you're looking at it." Rick came out, holding a sandwich in one hand and his phone in the other. He walked right past Bobby without a word, sat in his truck, and blasted the AC. Franklin waited for him to close the door before speaking again. "You been here a while." "6 years," Bobby said, "since before it was even part of the chain. Old owner sold it. Things changed after that." Franklin watched him for a moment. Changed how? "No more raises, no more overtime. They say corporate won't allow it. Not sure what's true and what's Rick making stuff up." Inside, the waiting room sat empty. The 2 customers who'd been waiting gave up and left during the lunch break. One left a voicemail on the shop phone, which Franklin could hear through the cracked door. "I don't know what kind of business closes with people inside," the voice said. "I'll take my car elsewhere." After 10 more minutes, Franklin got up and walked around to the side bays. He found Mateo wiping down his bay with a spray bottle and a clean rag. "You always clean like that on lunch." Mateo didn't look up. "No time to do it during jobs. If I don't do it now, it piles up." "You get extra for detailing." "No, but I don't like working in a mess." Franklin leaned against the wall. "That your Civic outside?" "Yeah." "Clean ride." "Thanks, saved for it all through tech school." Franklin waited a beat. "You like it here?" Mateo hesitated, then shrugged. I like working on cars, that's enough most days. Franklin watched him fold the rag into a perfect square before tucking it back into a drawer. He heard shouting from the other bay. I told you that's not how you reset the dam sensor, Rick's voice. Franklin stepped across the lot and found AJ standing frozen under the hood of a red SUV. Rick loomed over him, finger jabbing at the scanner tool. Can't believe I gotta teach this every damn week, Rick growled. AJ said nothing. Franklin stepped closer. Problem. Rick turned. Yeah, rookie messed up an oil reset, now I gotta do it myself. I didn't mess it up, AJ said quietly. The menu's just different on this model. Rick scoffed. You blaming the car now. Franklin caught AJ's expression tight jaw, red ears, eyes fixed on the floor. Seems like he's trying to get it right, Franklin said. Rick glared. Who are you again? Just watching, Franklin replied. Rick snorted and walked off. Franklin leaned into AJ. Hey, don't let him get in your head. The kid nodded once, then returned to the scanner. At 2, Franklin saw a maroon van pull in. The woman who stepped out looked exhausted mid-30s, sweat on her brow, 2 young kids in the backseat. She walked in holding a work schedule and a receipt from another shop. Rick barely looked up. Got a noise under the hood, she said. It started after got my timing belt changed. I just need to make sure it's not gonna break down again. I can't miss another shift. Rick flipped the receipt over. We didn't do this job, go talk to whoever did. I'm not asking for a refund, she said. I'm asking for help. He handed the paper back. Not my problem. Franklin stepped forward. Wanna let someone else take this one? Rick narrowed his eyes. You offering? Franklin looked at Bobby, who had just finished tightening a wheel on a pickup. You free for a quick look? Franklin asked. Bobby glanced at the woman, then the kids in the van. Yeah, gimme 5. Rick threw up his hands. Fine, waste your time. Bobby popped the hood. In under 4 minutes, he spotted the issue, a loose bracket vibrating at idle. He tightened it, revved the engine, and the noise vanished. All good now, he told her. No charge. The woman's eyes welled. I don't even know what to say, thank you. Franklin watched Bobby wave her off like it was nothing. At 3, Franklin had seen enough. He stepped outside, pulled out his phone, and called the regional HR manager. Send someone here? No warning. I want a full audit of this location, and I want Rick relieved of duty before closing. You want him suspended? No, Franklin said. He's done. Terminate him today. He hung up and walked back into the shop. Rick was back at the counter, scrolling through his phone. He looked up as Franklin approached. Your car done. Franklin pulled off the Cubs hat and took out his wallet. He laid his company ID on the desk. I'm Franklin Zavik. I own this chain. You're fired. Rick stared. What? You've been disrespectful to customers, hostile to employees, and you've misrepresented company policy. You're done. Pack your things. You can't just. Franklin didn't raise his voice. Can, and I just did. Rick opened his mouth, then shut it. After a long pause, he walked to the back without another word. Franklin turned to the techs, who had frozen mid-task. I'll explain everything at the end of the day. For now, keep doing your work. You've got nothing to worry about. Bobby stepped out of the bay, wiping his hands. You really him? Franklin nodded. Hell, Bobby said, took you long enough. Franklin gave a tired smile. I know. He looked around the shop. It wasn't broken, but it needed air, and he was ready to open the windows. By 4 o'clock, the shop was running quieter than it had all day. The tension that had hung in the air since morning had thinned, but it hadn't disappeared. Franklin could feel it in the way the techs moved faster, but cautious. Like they were waiting for the other shoe to drop. They hadn't asked many questions yet, just kept working. That, more than anything, told him how long they'd been ignored. He waited until the last customer left an older man picking up a radiator replacement before stepping into the center of the shop floor. The lifts were idle now, compressors silent, only the buzz of the overhead lights filling the space. "Can I get everyone together for 5 minutes?" Franklin asked. No one hesitated. Bobby wiped his hands on an old towel and leaned against the tool chest. Mateo shut off the bay light and stepped forward. AJ stayed near the desk, arms crossed, eyes wary. 2 other techs, Cal and Jerome, joined, both of them quiet but attentive. Franklin took off his cap and ran a hand through his hair. "I won't waste your time. You already know who I am. What I need you to know is why I came." No one spoke. "I built this company from the ground up. I used to be where you are, sleeves rolled, back sore, grease under my nails. But the bigger we got, the more layers came between me and shops like this one. And that distance, it let things slip through." Franklin looked around, meeting each pair of eyes. "I've been reading complaints, watching performance reports, but nothing hit me like what I saw today. That wasn't just bad service, that was disrespect. To customers, to employees, and I let it go on too long." Bobby shifted his weight. "We figured corporate didn't care." Franklin shook his head. I do, but I relied on the wrong people to keep me informed. That ends now." AJ finally spoke. "So what happens next?" Franklin looked at him. "First, Rick's gone, effective immediately. He won't be replaced with someone from the outside. I'm promoting from within, someone who already understands what respect looks like." He turned toward Bobby. "You've been here longer than anyone. You've kept things running with bad leadership and no support. I'd like you to step in as interim shop lead. If things go well, we'll make it permanent." Bobby blinked. "Me?" "You've earned it." "I got a bad back," Bobby said. "Can't be crawling under cars every day." "You won't. This role is split half floor, half front desk. You'll still wrench when you want, but your job will be making sure nobody deals with what you've dealt with." Mateo raised a brow. "Who's handling the schedule?" Franklin nodded. "Good question. That's the second change. We're hiring a second service advisor. This shop's been understaffed for months, and that stops here. You shouldn't be running full bays with one person at the counter." Jerome spoke up. "What about overtime? Rick said corporate froze it." Franklin's tone dropped. "That was a lie. There's no freeze. If you're being asked to stay late, you'll be paid for it. And if anyone ever tells you otherwise again, you come to me directly." There was a pause, then Bobby asked, "And the woman from this morning?" Franklin nodded slowly. "She'll be hearing from us personally. We'll inspect her vehicle at no charge wherever she chooses. I'll make the call myself." Mateo stepped forward. "And the kid who walked out before lunch, he was just asking about tire rotation. Rick laughed him out the door." Franklin looked at him. "Do you remember his name?" "No, but he said he lived off State Route 16. "We'll find him. He deserves an apology too." The room stayed quiet, but the air had shifted. Something unspoken cracked loose. They weren't relaxed, but they were listening. Franklin continued. "I'm not here to make speeches. I'll be coming back regularly, not to audit, to understand. I'm building a direct line between this shop and my office. No more filters." Cal cleared his throat. "You doing this at the other locations too?" "Yes, starting tomorrow." AJ's arms dropped from his chest. "You gonna tell them first, or just show up?" Franklin smiled. "What do you think?" That got a few light chuckles. Nothing forced, just enough to feel real. He looked around once more. "You all have jobs to do. I won't take up more time, but before I go I need to talk to Mateo and AJ privately." The others nodded and drifted back to their stations. Mateo leaned against a tool cart. AJ stayed near the desk, his expression guarded. Franklin gestured toward the office. "Let's talk in there." Once the door shut, Franklin turned to AJ first. "You're not in trouble," he said, "but I need to ask, how long has Rick been treating you that way?" AJ hesitated. "Since I started, almost a year." "Why didn't you report it?" "Didn't think it'd matter. Figured if I could just keep my head down." Franklin didn't interrupt. He let the silence do the work. AJ continued, voice lower. "He used to make fun of me for using torque specs, said I was wasting time, called me tech school boy in front of customers." Mateo added, "He did that to me too. If you didn't do it his way, you were soft, or slow, or both." Franklin's jaw tightened. "You were following company guidelines." Both nodded. Franklin looked at AJ. "Do you want to stay?" That gave the younger tech pause. "I don't know yet." "You don't have to decide now," Franklin said. "But if you do, you'll be reporting to Bobby. And if you ever get talked to like that again, I want to know. Directly. No middleman." Mateo asked, "And what about training? Rick cut the last 2 sessions we were supposed to have." "That's changing too. We're reinstating all suspended training programs. I'll make sure you're signed up for the next round of advanced diagnostics. And if you want ASE certification support, we'll cover it." AJ blinked. "You'll pay for it?" "If it helps you grow, yes. That's an investment, not a cost." Mateo crossed his arms, not defensive, just anchoring himself. "You're saying all the right things, but we've heard promises before." Franklin nodded. "That's fair. Don't trust the words, watch the actions." He paused, then added, "You kept working hard in a place that didn't respect it. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Neither of them replied, but the silence didn't feel skeptical anymore, just cautious, wary hope. Franklin opened the door. "I'll be back in 3 days. Until then, Bobby's in charge. And if either of you see something you think I need to know, you don't wait, you call me." He handed them a card, no logo, just his name and a direct number. AJ looked at it like it was a trick. "How do I know this isn't some burner phone?" "You don't," Franklin said, "but if you call, I'll answer." That got the faintest grin from Mateo, not smug, just surprised. Franklin stepped out into the late afternoon sun. The lot was quiet. The woman with the van was long gone. The waiting room was empty. But for the first time all day, he didn't feel like he was intruding. He walked to his truck, climbed in, and shut the door. The damage hadn't happened overnight, and it wouldn't be fixed overnight. But now, at least, it wasn't being ignored. 3 days later, Franklin Zavik pulled into the lot of the Elkhorn shop just after sunrise. The sky was still gray, the pavement damp from overnight rain. He parked in the far corner, not to remain hidden this time, but to give himself a moment before walking in, not as a customer, not as a stranger, but as the man now responsible for fixing what had been allowed to rot. The glass door was unlocked. Inside, the front desk was quiet but organized. A new name placard sat beside the register: Sierra, Service Advisor. She was mid-30s, glasses perched low, already on the phone with a customer. Her tone was calm, direct, and professional. Franklin waited until she finished, then stepped forward. "You must be Franklin," she said, offering a firm handshake. "Bobby said you'd be in early." "You settling in all right?" "So far, still learning the system, but the pace here is manageable. Not like the dealership chaos it came from." "Glad to hear it. Let me know if you hit any roadblocks." She nodded and returned to her screen. Back in the bays, the lights were on. Mateo was already working on a diagnostic panel, his laptop hooked up to a Dodge Charger. AJ was organizing tools by size, each drawer in perfect order. Bobby stood at the center of the floor, clipboard in hand, sleeves rolled, a new back brace strapped over his shirt. "You're early," he said without looking up. "You're earlier." Bobby finally looked at him. "I sleep better when I know what I'm walking into." Franklin noticed the layout had shifted. The old cluttered shelves were cleared. The break table had been moved near the side wall, and a new whiteboard hung above it, listing weekly goals and open tickets. "You did all this?" Bobby nodded. "If we're gonna run like a real shop, we need real structure. Rick never tracked daily throughput. I started logging it." Franklin stepped closer, reading the notes. "You're at 87% completion rate since Monday." AJ's been knocking out jobs ahead of schedule. Mateo's pulling double weight now that he's got room to breathe. Mateo didn't pause from his work. It helps when no one's yelling over your shoulder. Franklin turned to AJ. "You staying?" AJ wiped his hands, then nodded. "Yes, I'm not going anywhere." Franklin caught the change not just in his answer, but in how he stood. Shoulders squared, eyes steady. "Good, I've got something for both of you." He pulled 2 sealed envelopes from his jacket and handed them over. Mateo opened his first, ASE Level 2 certification voucher. "You both asked for growth. This is how we start." AJ stared at his envelope without opening it. "You earned it," Franklin said. AJ tucked it into his back pocket. "Thanks." Bobby checked his watch. "We've got a walk-in at 8. Woman's got a stall issue. Sierra already told her we'd run a compression test first. No guesswork." Franklin noticed the subtle shift, no wasted movement, no side chats, no tension. The shop felt focused. Not perfect, but pointed in the right direction. As the day picked up, Franklin stayed out of the way, but within earshot. He watched Sierra handle a double-booked appointment with grace, offering the customer a ride to work through a local shuttle service Franklin didn't even know the shop had signed onto. She had already established a folder system for repeat clients and was cataloging common repair histories. At the lift, Bobby coached Jerome through a camshaft sensor replacement, walking him through each step without taking over. Jerome asked more questions than Franklin had ever heard from him. No sarcasm, no hesitation. At lunch, the buzz of the staff room was different. Quiet jokes, but respectful. No one looked over their shoulder. Franklin sat with them this time, listening as Sierra mentioned she was drafting a new customer intake checklist to avoid miscommunications. Cal suggested adding a QR code on the receipts to collect reviews more consistently. "You don't have to do that," Franklin said. "Yeah," Cal replied, "but if we don't fix the perception, people will keep driving past us." After the break, Franklin stepped outside to take a call from the district manager. He kept it short. "Don't send anyone down here for oversight," he said. "This shop doesn't need a babysitter, it needs breathing room." He paused and started reviewing all other regional managers, quietly. By mid-afternoon, a familiar maroon van pulled into the lot. The woman from earlier in the week stepped out. Franklin walked out to meet her. "I was hoping you'd come back," he said. She looked surprised. "I wasn't sure I would, but someone left a voicemail, said things had changed." "They have." He walked her inside. Sierra greeted her by name, ushered her in with a clipboard, and within minutes, Mateo had the van on the lift for a full inspection. Franklin waited with her in the lobby. The kids weren't in the back this time, just her keys, and a cautious expression. "I didn't expect anyone to follow up," she said. "You didn't deserve what happened. Take that seriously." She nodded slowly. "It's different in here now." "That's the goal." An hour later, Mateo returned with a full report, no major issues, just a few tensioners that had been over-tightened. He adjusted them, cleared the error codes, and showed her the before and after diagnostics on the screen. "No charge," he said, "and if anything feels off again, just swing by, we'll check it." She shook his hand before leaving. After she pulled away, Mateo looked at Franklin. "You think she'll come back next time?" She already did. As the sun dipped low, Franklin gathered the staff once more, not for a speech, but to close the loop. "You've done more in 3 days than some shops manage in a month. That doesn't mean we're done. It means we've started." He turned to Bobby. "We'll formalize your role next week. You'll have access to hiring tools, so you can bring in a part-time tech if needed." Bobby nodded without ceremony. "Sierra," Franklin continued, "I want to expand your role into service ops across the region, eventually, but we'll take it one shop at a time." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure corporate won't push back?" "They'll follow my lead, they just don't know it yet." He turned to the rest of the team. "I didn't come here to fix every problem myself. I came to find out who could, and you've made that clear." No applause, no back-patting, just a quiet standing circle of people who understood what it meant to be seen again. As Franklin walked toward the door, AJ called out, "You coming back?" Franklin paused. "Not undercover, if that's what you're asking." "Still worth showing up," AJ said. Franklin smiled. "Then I will." He stepped out into the cooling air, the sound of tools and laughter faint behind him. The lot lights flickered on. The sign glowed a little brighter than it had before. Not because the building had changed, but because the people inside it finally could.